Hey loves, Tony here from TL Yarn Crafts, and today I'm going to show you how to wet block knit and crochet shawls the easy way. Wet blocking involves submerging your finished project in water to help the fibers relax into a desirable shape. Blocking isn't required for all projects, but it does work especially well for things like sweaters, scarves, and wraps. Today I'm blocking a recently finished sample of my Loveland shawl. It's a Tunisian crochet shawl I designed using Hue Loco DK Merino. I've got links to this pattern and the yarn I use below in the description. To block your shawl, you'll need a few supplies. Pins are a staple for blocking. Make sure they're rust proof, that way you won't get any rust from your pins on your projects. Knitter's Pride knit blockers are essential in my opinion. That way you can place several pins at once. I got these from Amazon, but you can also find them at most local yarn stores. You'll also need several interlocking foam mats. These are just like the foam mats that you see at daycares, and those mats work well too. Next, you'll need your soap. I just use a couple drops of dish soap, but you can also use one of those fancy wool washes if you prefer. Lastly, you'll need a large towel to soak up extra water after your shawl is done in the bath. Start the bath by filling a basin or the sink with lukewarm water. You don't want the water to be too warm or it could cause the project to felt a bit. The water should be warm to the touch but not scalding. Then add in a few drops of your soap or wool wash, and it really doesn't take much. I try to go easy on the soap so I don't have any residue left behind and I don't have to do any rinsing later. Once your sink is full of warm water and bubbles, it's time for your shawl to take a dip. Cue the music. Once your shawl is fully submerged and soaked through with water, set a timer for 20 minutes and find something else to do. If you need some suggestions, here's what I did. First, I found a cat on my couch and I petted him. He's cute. He's a really good boy. Then I found another cat in my house and I petted her too. You can't pet one without the other. We Lipsies, we don't play favorites. Then I went outside to admire nature and contemplate my life. It was such a beautiful day. While basking in the sunshine, I couldn't decide whether I wanted to pay off my student loans or try that weird whipped coffee drink everyone is making. I decided to put them both on the to-do list and see how the rest of the day went. And just like that, 20 minutes were up. Time to get my shawl out of the bath. While letting the water drain, I tried my best to squeeze as much water out of the shawl as possible. Squeezing like this will cut down on the drying time. Make sure you squeeze and don't wring your shawl. Wringing can permanently ruin all of your hard work. Next, wrap the shawl in a towel as shown. This just helps to get a little bit more water out of the shawl so it can dry faster. Try to get the shawl in one layer rolled onto the towel, then press firmly to release more water. For the next step, find a large flat surface to lay your foam mats. I will usually put them down on the carpet or some kind of flat surface in my home. I like to start at the top of my project, laying the number of mats I think are necessary for my project, and then I'll adjust them to the configuration that makes sense. You can always add more mats later. I then brought over my shawl to start laying it on the foam mats. I quickly realized how massive this shawl was and figured I should go find a bigger piece of floor, BRB. I found a bigger piece of floor in my dining room, placed my mats, and started pinning my shawl. When pinning, you can pin to specific measurements or to the size that you think is most appropriate. When pinning your project using the knit blockers, try to focus on getting straight lines. Your stitches ultimately relax into the shape that you give them, so take your time with this step. I pinned and pulled along the top first, then moved on to the edges. I put extra pins close to the lace of this shawl as well to help open it up. I could have used lace blocking wires, but I didn't really think it was necessary for this project. I added and moved foam mats around too. This is more of an art than a science, so please don't get hung up on doing this perfectly. At this point, I flipped on my ceiling fan and left my shawl to dry. I figured overnight would do. Oh hey, good morning. Let's check in to see how our shawl did overnight. Yay, it's completely dry! It's super important to make sure your blocked pieces dry completely before you unpin them. Think of it like line drying clothes. You wouldn't take them down before they were dry, right? Now, I carefully took out all of the knit blockers and put them back in their cases. Next, I wanted to measure my shawl. It measured 61 inches wide and 25 inches deep before blocking. Now, after blocking, I got to 75 inches wide and 31 inches deep. That is some major growth, all from adding a little water, air, and time. I'd say this block was well worth it. Now, let's reward ourselves with a sexy shawl shimmy. Thanks for joining me to block my shawl today. I hope it answered some of your questions about the easy way to finish your projects. You can find links to all of the supplies I use in the description below, as well as a link to the Loveland Shawl Tunisian crochet pattern. If you still have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and let me know if there are other crochet related topics I can cover in future videos. Once again, I'm Tony and I'll see you next time.